everyone. My name is Lynette Davis with LynetteDavis.com, and I am super delighted to have you here. I have a really cool guest. So you may be familiar with my next guest for my ongoing series this month for Mental Health Awareness Month. I think I said month like twice, but you have the picture. So my next guest, who has shared her story on the documentary What the Health, and she is a certified holistic nutritionist based in Washington, D.C., but I know that she works virtually with her clients. And you can see her speaking on different stages and traveling and just sharing her knowledge about food and nutrition. But I will let her tell you more about who she is and what she does. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Ruby Lathon.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be on and joining your tribe and folks. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Welcome. So I have had this topic that has been near and dear to my heart for some time. And after starting this year, unexpectedly in a hospital, having to do an emergency surgery, and it was I've never been hospitalized,
right,
ever in my adult life. So this is the first time I actually had to stay in a hospital as an adult. I began to really pay attention to the deep body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
So and we hear about this all the time, but like sometimes until it like really hits home, do you really pay attention to what that all means? So what's your take on this connection?
Well, to me now, it's pretty clear that the body and mind are completely connected, that one completely affects the other. When you feel bad physically, you usually feel bad emotionally too, right? Usually not like in best of spirits when you're in pain, right? No one is like, oh, I'm feeling so happy and I'm like doubled over in pain. So we understand that link, that when we feel bad physically, that we feel bad mentally, because it's so clear. It's hard to be jovial and happy and organized and, getting stuff done when you're physically ill. But we have underestimated the link that goes the other way, that when you're feeling bad emotionally and mentally, that affects your body the same way in terms of presenting, causing, leading, and facilitating disease. So we've kind of just blocked that out as if it doesn't exist and don't teach it, don't talk about it. But it is one of the most powerful things in terms of health and wellness, is controlling our thoughts and learning how to direct our body to heal using our mind. So they're so linked, you cannot unlink them. They are one and the same.
Awesome. So I've been doing a lot of references to an organization called Mystic Soul, because I'm quite new to the organization.
Okay.
And I was reading a blog post on one of the co-founders, and she shared some of her backstory about the spiritual healing properties of food. And she went in talking about how her godmother introduced her to things and how her grandmother introduced her to things. And, also how deep spiritual knowing would come from our gut. And I've heard that a lot, like, people are like head, heart, and then they say your other brain, your
right.
gut.
Yeah.
So as she got older, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing a little bit of what she wrote. As she got older, she began incorporating some of the practices that she thought were kind of like, oh, that's some folk stuff. And it was like, oh, wait a minute, let me go back. Some of that stuff actually makes some sense.
Exactly.
Like using teas to help ailments of the body, upset stomachs and things of that nature,
Right.
help sleep. So, interestingly enough, I also, when I was just thinking about all that, I also came across another blog that played off of Bell Hooks' Sister of the Yam. And that blog was talking about using food and plant-based nutrition for healing and building resiliency and things of that nature. So do you think there is a spiritual aspect to our food beyond nutrition?
There is. I mean, we're spiritual beings. This is why there are so many religions and so many different various kinds, because we're seeking that connection with our spiritual selves and that feeling that we have that something is greater and bigger and of ourselves and a designer. So when we take in food, there's a vibration to that. There's energy to it. Everything has energy. Everything has vibrations. And it doesn't just suddenly stop because we're putting it in our bodies. It continues on. So there's a lot to that piece of the spiritual connection. And I do agree with you about the gut being the second brain. I mean, when you get really excited about something, you feel the butterflies in your stomach, which is your gut, right? You actually feel that. When something goes really bad, people say it feels like a punch in the gut because it actually feels like that. You can feel the feelings there. And so it is like a second brain, and it's also very sensitive to stress as well. So the gut, manifests stress in a lot of different ways. When we're very stressed, we usually start developing some kind of digestive disorder or something like that. It can range from, anything from, Crohn's and IBS to just leaky gut and a bunch of other things. All starts there in the gut. They say over 70% of disease that we have in the body starts in the gut. And the gut, we know, is very much linked to the brain and to stress. So that is another center. We don't fully understand, why the gut and brain are so connected that way, but it's like physically the nerves, go from right one to the other. So we feel that. But I always definitely look at the spiritual aspect of food in terms of where the food comes from and how it is treated up until the point in which we consume it. And this is one of the reasons I've chosen a plant-based diet, is because I didn't want to participate in an industry that tortures animals and then gives it to us as food, because how can that be healthy if the animal wasn't happy, if it was grown in really terrible environment, very unhealthy, given the wrong food for itself to be healthy, and if it was killed in a very traumatic way, which they are, there's no way that spiritual life doesn't affect me if I consume that as well. So I think that is one of the reasons that the processed food and traditional factory farming is making so many people sick, not only physically, but mentally and spiritually, because it kind of takes that vibration down, because we're taking in fear, we're taking in death, we're taking in trauma, we're taking in just the terrible life of the animal's short life, and then we consume it, and then we don't feel edified, we feel full, and then we still feel sleepy and lethargic, but we don't feel like, oh, I feel more in tune with myself or my spiritual self. You don't usually feel that. Usually you feel that when you do things like a juice cleanse, when you're getting food out of your body, toxins out of the body. People say, I'm more alert. I feel more connected spiritually. I feel happier, lighter. So when we just look at those type of things, we can see the spiritual aspect of food definitely is there and has an effect, just by the fact that everything in nature and every animate and inanimate object has a vibration, and it ranges from high to low. And so when you take in food that's of a low vibration, that's going to lower your spiritual reception as well.
That's a good way to look at it. I had never thought about it that way when it came to animals and the way people prepare food and things of that nature before it becomes food. But
Right. Yeah. I mean, people say things. We have a lot of sayings that we don't realize were of real impact. You know, when people say, I put love into the food, or I really put intention and things like that, we just think it's just something to say. But really, I mean, I've personally seen when I haven't felt like cooking for someone and I did anyway, the food didn't taste as good as when I normally make it. I bake cookies, macaroons, really healthy dark chocolate dipped macaroons. And this one time I was tired. I was like, I don't feel like making these. So I had a bad attitude when I made the macaroons. And then when I tasted, I was like, this does not taste as good as when I normally make it. And it's the exact same recipe, exact same amount. And it's because the energy of the food, and people often say, well, when so-and-so makes the food, it just tastes different. And that's because everybody has different energy. And I know it sounds, I don't know how aware the audience who's listening is about energy and things like that. To some people, that sounds like ridiculous, but we do have energy and vibrations that it affects everyone around us. If you're happy and you're overjoyed and you go into a room, people are going to catch that energy. They're going to feel it, right? And usually they're going to become happier. The same thing if you come in and you're angry and you don't even say a word, but you know how you can say the tension is palpable in this room? Because it is. We just can't see it. And so when we have the same feeling and we are touching and, creating, that energy goes into the creation. So it definitely has an effect. So I am always happy when I make my food and give good advice so that it'll taste good for people, and and like I said, uplift them.
you know what? That's so true. And I think the term that they always go is woo-woo. But I mean, really, if you think about the example that you said, that's, if it was too woo-woo, we could put it in a business sense. People always talk about marketing techniques when they get on the phone.
Right.
If you're on the phone, smile and sit up straight.
Right. Exactly. So, why is that? Because it affects everything. The energy comes across the phone. Exactly. It is. Yeah. And it's like we kind of have gotten afraid of spirituality in that sense. It's like we want to keep our spirituality boxed in church and in the Bible in that way. And that's the only way that we experience our spiritual selves. When we are spiritual beings, period, regardless of what, belief system that you have, it doesn't take that away. And so we kind of get afraid of it because we boxed it away that, okay, we go on Sunday, or for some on Saturday, and this is when we experience our spirituality, only when I'm praying, or only, and it's part of us. So you can't separate it like that.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Very good point. I mean, me personally, when somebody will say, "Are you religious? Are you spiritual?" And I know some people say I'm spiritual but not religious. I'm both, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm spiritual and I am I'm a religious person because I'm religiously aware and active of the fact that I'm a spiritual being, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to bring spirit into this reality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting quotes around that.
Right.
Whatever I do.
Right.
For me, it comes in the form of love, and how can love, I suppose, transpire in all realms of what I do, from how I eat to who I interact with to how I check emails.
Mm-hmm.
So, awesome. So you started saying something about that is kind of been a very popular topic when we were talking about the two brains, the gut brain and the brain.
Right.
And I wanted to kind of backtrack on that because somebody can say, okay, all right, we get it, there's some spiritual aspect to the food. All right, cool. Well, what does this have to do with mental health? So I think going back to talking about that gut and that brain, that's where we can see a connection. What do you think?
Yeah, well, in terms of the gut and the brain, sure, it's like our, the small voice that kind of gives us, it's what we also call intuition, our gut, our intuition, some people will call it the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, we all have it. And it's kind of, to me, it's like it's the most honest and pure and usually the right instinct before it's like what you know internally before logic and tradition or what you think you should think or say clicks in. So it's like the first reaction, the gut has it and knows it. And then a lot of times we feel it, but then we'll put all kinds of conditions on it like, oh, well, I should do this because this person's not going to be happy if I choose this, or I should do this because of the money or whatever. But the initial calling was the right one. And then we kind of cloak it with a bunch of stuff because we don't want to do that, or it's too scary for us or whatever. And then when you don't listen to that repeatedly, you're kind of ignoring yourself, because you're not trusting yourself. It's like, I'm going to not put my kind of your inner self, as important as societal restrictions or expectations of me. So when that happens over and over again, then you start not feeling so good about yourself and you start devaluing yourself. And then there are things like depression and things that come on and you really don't know where that came from. But it's when you consistently kind of shut yourself down, if every time you gave an opinion, someone else said, no, let's do it this way. That's the same thing when you feel that intuition, you say, no, I'm going to do this way. You wouldn't feel good either time. And so that's what we do to ourselves. And that can lead to, a lot of things, self-doubt and depression and several other things. And the way that nutrition plays into that, when you have nutritional deficiencies, obviously, that can lead to depression and just poor mental health. It can exacerbate mental health conditions and make them worse, whereas good nutrition makes it better, from things ranging from, autism to bipolar disorder are highly affected by nutrition. So, and people have been able to heal depression just through getting the right supplements and the right food in their system. So it's several things together. It's not listening to ourselves and then taking in the wrong junk food definitely makes you depressed and unhappy, and that leads to poor mental health. And then usually poor choices, which exacerbate the condition.
Very, very true. Yeah, because when I first started my health journey, and I wish I could say that I was just all gung-ho about being healthy, but unfortunately, just like so many other people, it takes something negative for you to finally wake up and start doing the right thing. And I started getting a lot of gut issues. And when I began a diet to help heal my gut, now the first time I did it, I got rid of like everything and I lost so much weight.
Yeah.
And I was extremely unhappy. But then when I started figuring out what I could tolerate and everything like that, I started realizing that as much as we're, kind of driven to have like caffeine, after getting rid of caffeine, I had more energy than I had when I would have to drink caffeine.
Yeah, the artificial stimulant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just, notice like small things, and as it changes your body, it changes your mindset too. I noticed, and the productivity.
Yeah, I mean, the food affects our mood, our mental acuity, how fast we think, how slow. It affects everything. It's like, I don't see how we could think it wouldn't, because we are made up of food. Food is energy. Food is everything. Food is the way that we exist if we don't have it. So to think that you could eat anything and just still get great results doesn't make a lot of sense. But we kind of have, allowed food industry and everybody else to disconnect the two, when it's like, you are what you eat. That is true. And you are a reflection of that. So I think it definitely goes back to the energy of the food, because that's what food is supposed to be, energy, to give you that thing. And then if you're eating something that zaps your energy, then your body's saying you ate the wrong thing, because now you're doing the opposite of what you're supposed to do, is to pump you up and give you what you need to keep, to move forward. So Absolutely. The healthier the food, the healthier the brain. There's no debate about that. And we can definitely improve how we feel mentally and emotionally with food. I've worked with people who were trying to gain weight for a movie role, and the first time they wanted to do it in a healthy way this time. The last time they did it, they ate just anything they wanted: junk food, burgers, fries, chips, milkshakes, the whole nine, because they're trying to gain a lot of weight really fast. And they're like, okay, I really don't want to do that way this time. I want to do it in a plant-based way, and eat healthy food but still gain weight. So they're still eating too many calories, so they're going to gain weight, but they're eating smoothies and lots of nut butters and healthy avocados, just overdoing it, in order to gain the weight. They said the difference was dramatic. They still gained the weight, but this time they felt happy and good, even though they were overweight. Whereas before, with all the junk, they felt depressed. Their skin was yucky and oily. They said their skin was glowing and they were in a great mood and jolly and happy and fat. But it was just the difference in what you're fueling your body with makes all of the difference. So that to me just demonstrates how much food affects mental health. Is just even when you're overeating, you're still going to feel better by eating the right kinds of food, as opposed to food that really equals death. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of us are taking in, basically death food. We're kind of digging our grave every time we eat, as opposed to building ourselves up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely building ourselves up. And you know what? When you talked about kind of like, instead of digging a grave and building ourselves up, it actually reminded me of out in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna tie it back to what you were kind of saying as well about food being energy. So there was this movie, and I know some of my viewers have seen this movie, which was called Soul Food.
Okay.
And it's interesting because Mother's Day just passed, so all over I'm hearing the Mama song from Boyz II Men from the movie Soul Food.
Oh, that movie, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, now I remember that movie. Yeah, that was an old one. Yeah.
So what made me think of that was, it seemed to be a concept of bringing family together to uplift, to bring energy, all over a meal. Mm-hmm. And being able to come together and talk about differences, air out differences, mm-hmm. but come back together in love.
Yeah.
And I see similarities in this, in the energy that you're talking about when we talk about food and gatherings and things of that nature. So do you think that this was a sacred practice that passed down for the building and maintaining of mental health in a way?
I think it was. I don't know if it was for that reason, but it had that effect, because when you come together in whatever community, whether it's a family community or some other, religious community, when you have a group that you identify with and come together and eat, it is nourishing to the soul. And if it's good food, it's nourishing to the body too. So that's definitely a practice that has been passed down, the Sunday dinner or whatever dinner that folks do. And it can be very healing. And usually, it's made with love, even though a lot of it, soul food, wasn't healthy food. The intent was definitely from a place of love and giving and sharing and nurturing. That was the purpose of it. And they were nurturing through food, so that's definitely a spiritual practice that is passed down, and it was a sacred time. You need to show up, for your family, but you had the added incentive of food, so it doesn't make it that hard to do. So everybody wants to show up, but it gives you that time to connect, and that's what spirituality is. It's connecting, with that source. So absolutely, it's something that's been passed down, and I think needs to continue with a few modifications. of, of to be fully nourishing, not only to the spirit, but to the body as well, so that we don't have the lethargic feeling afterwards, that we actually feel like going for a walk afterwards because the food was so uplifting and not, putting us to sleep. So now everybody needs naps. So.
Well, you know what? Speaking of, because you're right, we could use some tweaks to that, because those chitlins and pig feet. I'm saying these things even though I've actually not had either one of them. I can't stand the smell of it. But I do have some relatives that do.
Yeah.
How can we keep with these type of traditions, these traditions that bring family together and things that seem like foreign concepts anymore? And that's not just in Black families, but just in families across America. It's like, what do you mean sit down and eat together? And how do we keep these type of traditions without making ourselves unhealthy by,
Right. I mean, it's really just acknowledging, some of the traditions were, brought about from necessity. And so it wasn't that this was the right food to eat. This was the food that was available, and we did the best we could with it. Nobody, when you think about it, when we think about pig feet and oxtail and chitlins and pig ears and all these things, these are the leftovers. These are the things that were cut off that regular folks who were in charge didn't want to eat. So this was the scraps that was left behind, and you could see why. These are not the most appetizing parts of an animal, especially chitlins. So that was from necessity. So we're creative people. We seasoned it up, cleaned it up, made it taste incredible. But I guess I've never had any. But so apparently people like them. So, out of necessity. And then also, we weren't eating meat every day. We weren't eating it all the time. Those were a special occasion kind of things put together. So now we have totally taken that and taken it to another level of unhealthiness, and added a bunch of, so not only we're eating the scraps, we're eating the main parts and the scraps and everything together, and just eating too much and eating it in the worst way with lots of oil and butter and frying and deep frying and all of this stuff, because that's what we had to do to make it taste good. But we have more resources now, we have more information now, and we're certainly not working in the field to work all that off now. So we have to adapt and be intelligent about it and say, how can I make these dishes that I love a little bit healthier, so I'm not actually killing my family when I feed my family? Because that's what's happening. And when you just say stuff in blunt terms, that's what's happening. When you're whipping up eggs and bacon and ham and buttered milk grits and all this stuff, that's saturated fat, that's cholesterol, that's the food of heart attack and death. So if we will acknowledge the truth of what we're doing, then we can start making the shift to say, okay, I love this food. How can I make healthier versions of it so that we're around to have more Sunday dinners?
Definitely. And it doesn't take away from the spiritual aspects of it, because you can still cook these healthy foods.
And you can, yeah, definitely. It actually raises the spiritual aspect of it, because now you're taking in, as I mentioned, kind of a higher vibration of food, and you're not taking in the death and destruction that has come along with raising those animals and all of that. So you're taking in better food, you're contributing in a positive way to the environment. So it's only people are gonna feel better, their moods are gonna be lifted, they're gonna feel good when they eat the food. It's not just gonna taste good, it's gonna feel good. And usually when we're eating the garbage food, it tastes good, but it doesn't feel good, because after you eat it, you don't feel good. And then you might need a Tums or a Rolade or, some digestive help and a nap. That says you don't feel good. But when you eat the right stuff, you feel happy that it was made for you, so you're spiritually fed, and then you feel good. And then that's just, great spiritual energy.
You know what? And not only that, but it's also great actionable energy, like with everything that is going on in our world, around our world, we need that energy. We need that energy to be able to fight for another day.
Yeah, exactly.
And also to thrive in the midst of adversity, in the midst of oppression and things of that nature.
Right, and it's the one thing that we have total control over. So regardless of what's going on in society or how we see ourselves or what weapons are being formed against us, in reality or not, whatever in our mind, we have complete control over what goes on our plate. So you can call, there might be oppression happening here and there, but you get to choose what is going in your body. That is the single most important decision you can make every day. That can be part of a resistance, so to speak, because now you're not falling prey to this system that has been designed to keep you sick and keep you in the medical system to make money off of you forever and ever until you die. So, it's in your control. So if you want to take charge and be a rebel, resist the path that is taking you to a faster death and just bad health.
Awesome. So I am super grateful that you came on to help me close out this series for the month. I have been wanting to talk about the tie between food, spirituality, to bring food into the talk of spirituality and then tying that to mental health. So this was excellent. And I am super grateful that you were able to come on and share this knowledge with us. So we have covered quite a bit in such a short time.
Yep.
How can my viewers and readers connect with you if they're looking to go deeper into the work around what you have shared? Because I know some of them are like, yeah, I want to get better, or they might go, oh yes, I know that Dr. Ruby from What Health. I want to reach out to her. So how can they get in touch and stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way is through my website, which is rubylathon.com. I'm sure you'll have my name up there, but it's rubylathon.com. And you can connect with me there and make appointments and those type of things and watch videos and recipes. Or you can email me at info@rubylathon.com and we'll get in touch. So there's a wealth of information on the website. There's a Going Vegan program that you can do anytime. So if you're like, I think I'm ready to make this shift, raise my vibration, that's there along with a lot of other things. So definitely check it out, and you will be nourished.
Love it. Well, again, Dr. Ruby, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything with us.
Sure. Glad I could join. Thanks for having me.
And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Until the next time, peace, love, and wellness, or wellness with the W.
Definitely.
Take care, everybody.